Okay, I'm back again, and in this video, in my demonic influence series, I'm going to talk about sinners, or lost people, anybody who is not saved. And for the most part, that's most likely a very small part of demonic influence, which is still technically demonic influence, but maybe it's just a small part. Basically the devil doesn't care what you do as long as you're not saved. So as long, even if you have good morals or values and you act like a good Samaritan, in fact, those people, the enemy might plant a seed in your mind, or in someone's mind who is like that. It makes them think that they don't need Jesus because they already do good things. They don't sin. And that kind of thing. And also, people who sin are actually serving the devil when they think they're worshiping themselves. So, people who were we're going to get to the scriptures in a minute. Blue Letter Bible, the multiple verse retrieval in the Blue Letter Bible. The links will be in the description. So before I get to it, there was a lot of scripture to read. So, anyways, before I get to that, I get to what I mean by like how the enemy could lead people to sin, and it starts off as a sort of a temptation or an idea planted in your mind, and even if it doesn't go much further than that, then you're out there partying, you're out there having fun, you're not thinking about God at all, you're not saved, whatever. Then even if you get partying and you pretty much have good morals, you don't lie very often, or you try not to lie, you're honest, you have good values, you have good ethics. But if you're not saved, then all that doesn't mean a thing. Even if a person could be like sinning, they can like party, or the devil could lead them to maybe lust after somebody, because even thinking about sinning, or because lust counts as adultery. Thinking about sinning makes you just as guilty as sinning. Hatred counts as murder. All that stuff. So, yes, and sometimes, a lot of times, the scripture talks about the world being under the sway of the enemy and being under the influence of the devil. I believe that a lot of that, most of the time, it's a seed planted in your mind, an idea, if you will, that's planted in your mind, an idea or a temptation to go sin, or that looks fun, or you want to do that. Now, a lot of sin, maybe the first time you do it, it's no big. You might be able to quit cold turkey. But sometimes even the second or third time. But the more often you commit a sin, the stronger its control has over you, the more power it has over you. And at some point, that sin that you keep doing over and over again will become a stronghold. So, and I also would like to point something out too, before I get to the reading of the scriptures. There is a difference between demonic possession and demonic oppression, which oppression can also mean influence, can include demonic influence, and there are different levels of influence. Like I said, it could be a seed, an idea planted in your mind, an idea to sin or a temptation to sin. And then you have the choice to whether or not to act upon it. Okay? So, and the reason I want to point that out because I was watching a video, what's it called, Living Waters or something, about a street preacher named Ray Comfort, a video from was it a couple of years ago, and Ray Comfort, he's talking to people, and he's talking to some guy with kind of like a big mohawk. I mean, I have never seen anybody with a mohawk that big in real life. I mean, maybe like TV shows or something like that. And when like this guy had like a big mohawk, and I mean big spiky mohawk, kind of big. Anyways, and the guy also had an open can of beer with him. So, and Ray Comfort was witnessing Jesus to him and preaching to him about Jesus and stuff. And I don't know, he thought that when the guy took a drink of his beer, Ray Comfort said that at that point that he knew that he was losing him. And a lot of people in the comments, so for some reason they thought that the guy taking a drink of his beer while he was witnessing, while Ray Comfort was preaching to him about Jesus, was a demonic manifestation. It's not. Well, number one, the beer was already open. The guy was already drinking a beer, and was going to take a drink of beer regardless. Drinking a beer while somebody's preaching to you about Jesus is not a demonic manifestation. Okay? I just want to might go more into that after I read these scripture. Because for the most part that's for another video, but I just want to say that right there is not a demonic manifestation. The guy's not even demon possessed. Oppressed, possibly. Maybe oppressed by a spirit of addiction, which is what leads him to drink in the first place, or if that guy is doing drugs or something, which we don't know. I don't know if he is doing drugs, or if he is an alcoholic, because drinking beer in and of itself is not a sin. However, if that beer, if it leads to an addiction, if he's an alcoholic, then he's under the influence of a spirit of addiction, because that alcohol has become well, like an idol, if you will. It's become a stronghold. It's something he has to have. Okay, so he's becoming, at that point, if the guy is an alcoholic, which in that video, the guy, he listened very calmly. He listened, so no demonic manifestation in that guy whatsoever. And not all Christians, not all lost people, are going to manifest. In fact, the lost people do not manifest if they're simply lost. Now, the scripture. I have a lot of scripture. I was planning to film 2 videos today. Let's see if I still can. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3 through 4. New King James. I'll be reading from Blue Letter Bible, the multiple verse retrieval. And the references, the scripture references will be in the description. So, here we go. But even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, whose minds the God of this world has blinded. who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them. So that's talking about sinners, lost people of the world being blinded by Satan. I talked a little bit about that in the last video. Now, 1 John 5:19. We know that we are of God, and that the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Another scripture, that right there was another scripture about being under the influence of the devil. Excuse me, about the world being under the influence of Satan in the spiritual kingdom of darkness. Ephesians 6:12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities. I got a little tongue twisted. But against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Pretty much Satan and the spiritual kingdom of darkness, that's who our enemy is, that's who we wrestle against. And the context of Ephesians 6:12 is talking about putting on the armor of God, which it briefly mentions, and then after it names this verse right here, verse 12 from 13 on to the rest of the chapter, I believe it describes the armor of God, that we may defend against the wiles of the wicked one, which I should have left that in. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe I didn't think about that. So, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, 4 through 5. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. I got a little tongue twisted again. So that right there is talking about the enemy planning thoughts or evil imaginations in our hands, kind of in our minds, kind of tempting us into sin or leading us into darkness or something, like imagination, like a reasoning, a thought process. The word stronghold and the word arguments refer to a thought process or a reasoning in this verse right here. Strongholds can figuratively refer to arguments, and the word arguments can refer to a thought process or a reasoning, a mindset, if you will. And I think that maybe the word imaginations is a better translation, and there is a translation that does say imaginations rather than arguments. So I have to get moving along. John 16, 5 through 15. Wow, this is fun. This is John 16. But now I go away to him who sent me, and none of you ask me, where are you going? But because I have said these things to you, sorrow has filled your heart. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth, it is to your advantage that I go away. For if I do not go away, the Helper will not come to you, but if I depart, I will send him to you. By the way, I'm adding some context. Now I'm kind of building a foundation and add a little bit and add some context. Anyways, verse 8. And when he has come, he will convict the world of sin and of righteousness and of judgment. Those three things right there is what we're going to focus on. Of sin, because they do not believe in me. Of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and you see me no more. Of judgment, because the ruler of this world is judged. Not the ruler of this world, that is Satan. And this is the only time we see Satan as the ruler of this world, described as the ruler of this world. He is judged, And after Jesus rose from the dead, Satan, he took back the authority that Satan stole, and Satan was no longer the ruler of this world. Okay? So there's a difference between the ruler of this world and darkness, and God of this world. Then verse 12, I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. However, when he, the Spirit of truth, has come, he will guide you into all truth, for he will not speak on his own authority, but whatever he hears he will speak, and he will tell you things to come. He will glorify me, for he will take of what is mine and declare it to you. All these things that the Father has are mine. Therefore, I said that he will take of mine and declare it to you. By the way, I recommend doing a Bible study on John chapter 16, the entire chapter, to get a better understanding of what verse 33 is saying. It's amazing. So, let's see, 16 minutes into the video. Okay, I still have a few more scripture to read. There was a lot, and I am almost done. Now I'm going to tell you how to overcome sin and how to be set free. Something that almost nobody is talking about. This is something that is widely overlooked. I have never seen this verse of scripture right here that I am about to read used for what I am about to tell you, even though it is clearly part of the context. John chapter 8 verses 31 through 36. Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, if you abide and eat in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants, and we have never been in bondage to anyone. How can you say, you shall be made free? Jesus answered them, most assuredly I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. That is very key, that whoever commits a sin is a slave to sin. Jesus himself said that. And that goes back to what I was saying, that the more you commit a sin, the stronger it's destroyed, the more power it has over you, and the harder it is to break, to stop. Now somebody could probably steal one time and then quit cold turkey and never steal again in the end of their life. But then they make a habit of it, then they almost become a kleptomaniac, basically. Because the sin has become as a bondage, it's become a stronghold. Pathological liars are in the stronghold of sin. And there are other sins which I will get into in a later video that are more controversial, but this applies to all sin, becoming a stronghold. So now the rest of that, I'm going to focus on the last part, on verse 35. Verse 36 is what we're going to, last verse in this paragraph. But before we get to, let's go to 34. Let's go to 35. Verse 35. And the slave does not abide in the house forever, but the son does. Now here's the key part right here. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. Now, let's back up to verse 34. For I say to you, whoever commits a sin is a slave to sin. Then go back to verse 36. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. Let's focus on verse 34 and 36 right there. I have never seen anybody connect those two verses together. Anyone who sins is a slave to that sin. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. Now, obviously, that right there can apply to any type of spiritual bondage. But the immediate context is talking about free from the bondage of sin. Whatever sin you are currently dealing with, whatever sin has become a stronghold in your life, you can be set free from it. So, there you go. Who the Son sets free is free. And I have never seen this verse used in that context. I mean, used in its proper context. I've seen the last part of that verse, who the Son sets free is free indeed. Verse 36 used in another context for other stuff, which it could apply to, and probably does, but not the most important thing, which in the immediate context, which it most definitely does apply to, which is free from the bondage of sin. Now, Genesis 4, 6 through 7. Let's see. Genesis chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. So the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should rule over it." God was giving a warning to Cain before he let his anger take over him and murdered Abel. Romans chapter 6 verse 12. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in its lust. That's all the scripture, and I've already got the most important scripture. So, who the Son sets free is free indeed. It's talking about free from the bondage of sin. And there you go. And really, the only kind of demonic influence that a lost person has, and maybe like the imagination level, the enemy planning imagination, like temptation and stuff in their mind, like seeds in their mind to go sin, or maybe he's not gonna call it sin. Maybe he's gonna make it sound like more fun. It's gonna make maybe plant a temptation in their mind. Whatever just leads them away from God. And even if they have good morals and they act like a good Samaritan, as long as they're not a Christian, the devil don't care the devil doesn't care what they do. And if someone is simply lost or not saved, they are not going to manifest while someone is witnessing Jesus. They're not going to manifest a demon when you're witnessing Jesus to them, okay? Okay, because simply being a sinner or lost does not make you demon possessed. Maybe a very low level of demonic influence, like very low demonic influence or oppression, but not demonic possession. They are not going to they don't manifest. But that's for another video. And apparently I'm going to have to film 2 videos tomorrow or something. Anyways, that's it for this video. Bye.